All right, what is up, everybody? Today we're doing a chatting with Jackson where I basically share the future, the present, all the above. And I do that while sipping coffee. No, I haven't had coffee yet. I'm a big coffee fan. And so, this first sip of coffee, it's going to be amazing. So, please be with me. I'm going to be enjoying this coffee. And it's going to be about an hour ish, 45 minutes. So, it's going to be long. Just a heads up. But yeah, let's jump into it. Some good coffee. Wow. Okay. For starters, let's talk about AI. And let's not talk about the AI like Claude and Lovable and all those things, which are great. But I think we should talk about where the real foundation is being built, and that is these data centers. So physical AI is going to be a lot bigger with robots and all that stuff than non-physical AI. Hardware is going to be a huge thing. I think wearables will also be a huge thing. But let's kind of lay the foundation. Okay. So it's 2026. And 2026, right now, all of these data centers are being built all around the world. All the data centers. You can't really see them. You don't really feel the effects of them, but they're being built. Now, what does this do? They convert resources such as clean water, which is going to be another big issue we're going to have to figure out in the next 10 years or so. And they take that water and they use that with a whole bunch of other resources, and they're able to go and train AI and make AI smarter. And the more units, the smarter the AI is, right? Based on all of these chips. And that's another constraint. And that constraint is trying to be solved now by Elon Musk with his Gigafactory, which will probably happen in a few years. And then there'll be other competitors. And then NVIDIA and TSM, all those guys will get smarter too. Okay, so they're going to figure out all that. Great. Now, nice. What does this mean? This means that now we're going to have a huge 100,000x in AI. Well, AI, there's only so much it can do on your computer. Great, it can do everything on your computer. Cool. Well, I want it to do my dishes. I want it to do the manufacturing of my manufacturing plant. I want it to do X, Y, Z. And so that's where it's really going to be integrated in is physical, real world AI, where it basically anything that a human can do that's a low labor level, AI is going to go into that and really disrupt things. And so that will be an interesting thing over the next 10, 15 years. And it's going to be a lot smarter than AI is currently just because those chips are going to get solved. And so a lot going on there. Now, what does this also mean? And how does this, what does this mean for, you and me? It means that these markets, right? A lot of these funds, there's a lot of private equity funds. There's a lot of, you need capital, right? And so a lot of that capital being poured into these data centers is going to see significant returns. A lot of capital poured into, AI, into markets, into assets like crypto, right? Into assets like water rights. Those are actually, I'm going to take note of that. Water rights. I want to look into how can I own some water rights, because that's going to be valuable. But, yeah, those type of assets are going to be really valuable, and everyone thinks there is going to be a recession, which I think the same, I guess, but I lean less towards, I think we're kind of just warming up. I think that Bitcoin will be millions of dollars. Gold will be 15K, all these things, and it is not unrealistic because you have to understand inflation. When those asset prices are that high, what does that mean? It just means inflation's higher. It means that you're going to be working a minimum wage job making $100 an hour. That's going to be minimum wage, right? If you're a doctor, maybe you're making, $3,000 an hour until you have, you're see what I'm saying? And also, I don't think doctors will be replaced with AI. I think they will work there'll be a lot of hybrid, right? AI will kind of hybrid into a lot of careers, right? And like, let's say you're a lawyer, right? Okay, well, now, you want to build the new lawyers build a brand and have an amazing understanding of AI, and now you kind of take, we're the best, we have all the best AI tools, and I have a big brand, and here's all the proof and all the cases, and we can make this into cool stories so that people can just watch our content, and then when they need us, they know who to call. Boom. That's kind of like the evolving strategy. Same with a lot of media, same with a lot of content. Content's really evolving. Communities are really, big, and they're gonna be bigger. Movements belonging to something is something that's really missing and will be missing over the next, 7, 8+ years. And so building a community that gives you a sense of belonging. You already see this with churches and a lot of other groups. These communities are exploding, and people are buying the things that, like, the only thing that I've ever bought off Instagram Reel was a community. It was $50 every quarter, and it was a scam, but I bought it. And that shows that community and your sense of belonging into something is one of the most important things ever. And so, communities, that's another side note. So we have figure out water rights, communities. How can you create a community, a brand that gives you a sense of belonging, right? How can you do that? In my opinion, I think would be cool is a clothing brand, or maybe a wearable brand, right? Like an Apple kind of brand, or some sort of thing that is weared and displayed and shows I belong to this. And also, because I belong to this, I get access to exclusive things. Maybe it's exclusive events, exclusive XYZ. And so a lot of cool things in that. But yeah, those are going to be some value things. In terms of inflation is really going to hit. I think that right now, you can get most like trade jobs for $150,000 a year. You can get, blue collar jobs will go down to minimum wage jobs. You're not blue collar, I mean, white collar jobs, a lot of those will go down to minimum wage jobs. And I think that a lot of people will just kind of have their solo operator business. I think that will be a big thing. And I think that those will stay stagnant until the use of, how can I use robotics in my, electrician business or whatever business. And in terms of like AI being that good to replace all trades, I think it's 40+ years. So not too long in terms of that side of things. Another thing is real estate. Real estate's been stagnant in a lot of places. You have to be around 40. The average age to buy real estate in this current market is around 40. 20 years ago, it was about 26. So real estate's becoming more of a luxury. Seeing a lot more apartments being built. A lot of developers are taking the approach of build and then rent out, right? And get that cash flow. And the goal of real estate is just own. It's never to sell. So because if you own, you can borrow against all of that real estate. I think that fitness and lots of fitness is really becoming bigger. You see this with like supplements, which was a big wave. Now we have peptides, and then we'll have something bigger than that in the next 5 years or so. But that's definitely a big thing where everyone's wanting to become more fit and become better, a better version of themselves. I think fitness and athleticism and having an authority, even people like Joe Rogan, who would be considered having an authority in that space, is a very powerful thing, a very powerful way to monetize, and a very more respectable thing, right? Look at, I think his name's Clavicular, who looks max, right? So how can you look your best? The best way you can look the best is to be the best at nutrition and take care of your body. You can do all these other things, but if you take care of your body too and have an understanding, you will progress the farthest. And so that is now the look, the appearance, and the physique and the health is now starting to become more than just money, right? I think if you look at kind of the last kind of timeline of things, it was like comedy, funny, all these things in terms of like, I guess 15 to 30 in terms of like what that demographic is into, and I can speak on that because I'm inside of that demographic. But it was, um, comedy, funny stuff. A lot of us grew up playing kind of like Minecraft, all that stuff. Fortnite, comedy, funny stuff. Then Andrew Tate. Then we had COVID, right? And then we had COVID. Kind of flipped. All that funny stuff was taken to the extreme. So then it flipped, and then it went into money. Anyone who had money was now suddenly really cool. That was all super glorified, and all of these kind of, I guess, course creators became the new content creators. All of these guys took that approach. Now it's moving more into the fitness side of things, which has always been into fitness. It's always been a big thing, but it's moving more into the fitness thing. I show speed is athletic. Whoever, backflips, like anyone who is good looking or athletic, that is an accelerator in a form of currency. And so that's going to become more and more from currency, where the fact that, like, if you're just athletic in 10 years, you could probably get most things for free. And so that's a really good kind of currency and good thing to add on. Okay, great. So we have water rights. We have communities, right? Some sort of brand where it represents community. And then we have being as ripped as possible, as fit as possible. Okay, let's see. What is the next thing? I'm trying to think, since that did cover a lot of things. Let's see. In terms of the future, I mean, I guess the space economy, but that's gonna be in like 20 years. I think ocean exploration will be big, but that's gonna be in 15 years, 10 years. Especially with real world AI. I think that real world AI is going to play effect. It's going to be in an effect in a lot of these industries, but the real thing of real world AI will be in the space economy. Since it's really difficult to send humans up to space, why don't we just send a whole bunch of AI into space? So the 90% of AI will just live in space, and so a lot of that is going to be manufactured in space or in Earth, but it depends on the units of economics on what that's going to be. Probably be a hybrid. Then over 10 years there will be a winner, whether it makes sense on Earth, whether it makes sense on space, who knows. Or maybe it probably makes sense on the moon. I personally am not as big a fan of blocking all of the solar system, blocking all of our LED lights, so we can't see the stars and all that stuff. So I would lean more towards slower in that progress, because going to space versus not going to space does not really affect my life too much. If I was more like 70 years old, I would probably want to push going to space a lot more. But being younger and still wanting to look up at the stars and stuff, I'm not as big of a fan of flooding everything in space and all of that in the stars and stuff. And I would argue that most younger people, anyone below 50, would have that same opinion. Anyone who's more closer to death would care less about the Earth, right? So the older you get, I think the less you care about Earth and the condition, all that stuff. But usually in that 50 to 70 range where most of the wealth is, so there's more the decision maker, right? And so, yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else to talk about in terms of, like, I guess let me recap on everything first. Okay. Money, getting capital, whether that's working job, whatever, getting capital and investing that strategically into as many assets as possible and owning as many assets as possible. Big thing. Especially strategic assets that can, 10, 20x. And that's how you're going to be able to create wealth and hold those assets and borrow against those assets. Next is creating a community, creating a brand, creating some sort of wearable that represents a movement, that represents a sense of belonging, because that's a big thing that's missing, a sense of belonging, that's connection, that gives you exclusivity to events and other resources and networks. And then overall just being as healthy and as fit as humanly possible. And then a subcategory below that would be the social access one, which the community kind of solves. Being as fit as possible, as connected as